how it all went south.
All right, Jason, I was telling you at the top of the episode about this story I came across, and it is a murder that took place or a murder that was committed. And sort of the headline that I read led me to believe that social media kicked in and banded together and found the killer, and that's how it happened. And that's, I was saying, kind of true, but kind of not true as I dug into it more. Still interesting. And still social media and just the average person, and I don't want to say armchair detectives, but just people who came across a story that we've all seen thousands of times on social media. It pops up in your feed. It's a thing. Here's what happened. Just the other day, there was a high school student, I believe in Pennsylvania, that was stabbed at a school function and a track meet. And it just pops up in your feed, and people band behind these things. And that, in a situation like this where a killer is on the run, can really have a positive impact. So this story is about Daisy Della O, who grew up in Los Angeles, where she was known for her kind heart, infectious smile, and determination. With dreams of pursuing a career in fashion, she expressed herself through her creativity and unique style. Her bright future, however, was tragically cut short. On the evening of February 23rd, 2021, Daisy, who was 19 years old at the time, left her home in Southgate, California. She'd planned to meet with someone she knew, but, family didn't really think much of it. Daisy was independent and responsible. So they just, I think, said, cool, we'll see you later. Unfortunately, that would be the last time her loved ones would see her alive. The morning after, Daisy's lifeless body was discovered in an alleyway. She had been brutally stabbed, and the scene suggested signs of a struggle. The discovery devastated her friends and family. Gripped with grief, her loved ones pleaded for answers while law enforcement began piecing together the circumstances that led to Daisy's untimely death. The question on everyone's mind was clear: who could have done this? Detectives from the LA County Sheriff's Department quickly launched their investigation. Daisy's death, marked by its violent nature, led investigators to believe that she might have known her attacker. And it's always amazing to me when you have good investigators and the average person, or even a person who knows, everybody knows about true crime and some of the processes of picking apart a crime scene at this point. When they can look and go, she knew this person. It's in its little things, right?
Yeah.
That just help you. Those first 48 hours, everybody knows that. First 48 hours are so crucial. And when you can look at the crime scene and determine something like that very quickly, that just narrows down your search field, which is so incredibly important. Okay, we're looking for people that she likely knew, had a close relationship with, things like that. I always just think that's
Yeah, well, think about showing up to a crime scene, even if you're an expert in the field.
yeah.
Like, most of the time, there's a body, there's blood, and where do you go? You got nothing.
Yeah.
There's no one there. There's no, whoever did it is not there. That's a pretty big hole. And you know what I'm saying, though?
Yeah.
That's a tough starting point. You want to narrow it down as soon as you can.
Yeah. Interviews with friends and family revealed that Daisy had been involved in a tumultuous relationship with a young man named Victor Sosa, who was her ex-boyfriend. The investigation revealed that Daisy had been in this volatile relationship with him, and Sosa struggled with anger issues and jealousy after they broke up. This discovery made him, of course, the primary focus of the investigation. The focus on him as a suspect intensified when witnesses claimed to have seen Victor in the vicinity of the alley where Daisy's body was found the night of the murder. So, again, really quickly focusing on this, and that's the part I love, and I don't mean to say it like this, there's no part of loving a criminal investigation, because it's, but what I mean by that is just when it works,
Yeah.
we've worked these cases together, Jason. We've talked about so many where months and years and decades go by, and the person who's committed this murder is it's years before they get brought to justice, if ever at all. And I love seeing the pieces fit together relatively quickly. Um, you know what I'm saying?
I do, but it sounds like there's a twist here. Like, this seems we're pretty straightforward, so, like, I don't know where you're going with this.
Well, I don't think there's a big twist in this.
Okay.
Part of, again, the social media aspect of this I'll get into. But they don't know where this guy is. They just
Hmm.
he's the main suspect at this point. And now you've had someone come forward who says, like, yeah, I saw this guy
Yeah.
in that
Okay.
general area on the night of the murder. So shortly after Daisy's body was discovered in Southgate, her loved ones turned to social media to spread the word and seek help, as most people do in that situation. Family members and friends shared posts about her life, her horrific death, and their call for justice. These posts, which included, of course, photos of Daisy and heartfelt messages, quickly went viral, garnering attention from thousands of users on platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and X, or, well, it's Twitter then. This widespread publicity brought the case into public consciousness beyond the immediate Southgate community. Hashtags like Justice for Daisy were used to consolidate updates about the case and ensure it reached people who might have pertinent information. Daisy's family began sharing posts that highlighted Victor Sosa's history of abusive behavior and included his photo and information. Social media users quickly circulated that photo, warning others about the potential dangers he posed. Online sleuths began piecing together details about him, including his whereabouts and his connections, in an attempt to assist law enforcement in tracking him down. And look, man, we've seen this. I've been a part of this. Law enforcement has a love-hate relationship with, I don't know, we'll call it the true crime community.
Yeah.
There are certainly ways where people can get in the way and misinformation, and it makes their job a lot harder. And there are times where, again, it just clicks, and you, instead of having the resources of your small police department, now you have thousands or even millions. Look, Gabby Petito case is a
Yep.
perfect example. It was just like it caught fire, and you've got, oh, I have a camera here. It caught a picture of this guy, and I mean, and that's amazing to me.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I talk shit a lot about social media, because I have a love-hate relationship with that. But like I said, man, when it works, it's really unbelievable. Posts calling for Victor's arrest gained traction, especially on Instagram and TikTok, where users created videos to raise awareness about the case. These videos outlined the evidence against him, shared updates from Daisy's family, and encouraged viewers to contact the authorities if they had any information. This digital vigilance significantly increased the pressure on Victor, who eventually went into hiding. Of course he would. His name's out there now. After Victor Sosa fled following Daisy's death, social media users kept his name in the spotlight. They monitored his online activity and shared potential sightings. A significant breakthrough occurred when someone reportedly recognized Victor from photos circulating online and contacted the authorities, leading to his eventual apprehension in Riverside, California. So again, you can't have eyes everywhere, but if you've got 50,000 people or 100,000 people out there with their eyes out, and LA's big, man. I mean, look, even in today's modern age, it is easy to disappear in a city of that size,
Yep.
you
And
know?
what's interesting to me, I know he's the prime suspect. I know everything that you talked about. But at the same time, if you've got so many thousands of people tracking his every move and he didn't do it, what about that, right? Like, there's a public
Sure.
court of opinion of, we got this guy, and what if there's a mistake?
Yeah.
Like, it's a slippery slope when you think about it.
For sure. And I mean, that comes, back to saying, love-hate relationship between law enforcement and the public or social media,
Right, right.
because yeah, and it's happened. And I've seen it happen in just projects we've worked on together where people, and that's the tricky thing because you have a podcast, you have these updates. There are people who will just take, oh, episode 4 is looking like this guy did it. That's the guy. And they just go full
He just
force.
sounds guilty. He's
Yeah.
gotta be the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, or
And maybe, but,
yeah,
you know,
or, they're telling you a story that they heard from a friend, not directly from the person, and,
yeah.
in this case, I'm not saying that this is the case, I'm sure it isn't, but, the public may have a suspect that they've all flagged, like Victor, and the police who might not want to admit that they may have another suspect, but they don't wanna tell anyone, and so what do you do in that case? Like,
Yeah.
this is tough.
Yeah. I think, though, it really sounds to me like they were pretty sure at this point,
Okay.
um, that this is our main suspect for a reason, possibly the only suspect. Um, and I think they were, they didn't know where the guy was at first. And eventually police were tracking him, when and I think waiting to collect enough evidence or put things together before they went after him. But again, he's in hiding or he's trying to evade law enforcement. He could disappear, and if that happens, then it becomes increasingly difficult to find him.
Well, in
Um,
in some respects, it's kinda like your classic FBI's most wanted poster, right? That's
right.
down at the
Sure.
the post office or on the telephone poles in the neighborhood or whatever. It's like, yeah, we're looking for this person. He's suspected of doing these heinous crimes, and if you know anything, call this number or Crime Stoppers or whatever. Like, it's the
Yeah.
modern day version of all those things.
Yeah, but it's instantaneous. That's the
Exactly.
thing, you
And
know?
and because it's on social media, people tend to pay more attention to it,
Well,
you know?
yeah, because who's going, I mean, how many people really are going to the post office today and looking at the message board with, I don't even think they put those up there anymore.
That's a good question.
Um, but the constant stream of information and all these posts and everything that was happening online made it increasingly difficult for him to remain undetected because once your face is out there,
Yeah.
here's the thing, and I was thinking about this before we started these episodes today. You have Gen Z, I guess this would be Gen Z, right? The younger. And this is not a knock or a for or against Gen Z or any generation in specific, but if that generation wants to find you online, they will do it. And I mean, like, kudos to them because it's the generation of technology and social media, and it's amazing. We've seen it, and again, not a political statement. Don't care if you like Elon Musk or not, or Teslas or what, but you have seen this in real time right now, where people are firebombing Teslas or keying Teslas or whatever, and you see someone post online a grainy little snapshot from a security camera of a person, and 2 days later, you see an update that that person's been identified and arrested and has
Yeah.
lost their job or whatever it is. It's that fast.
In addition to the 18 cameras that are on the Tesla to begin with.
Well,
And
yeah,
people
yeah.
don't even realize that how ubiquitous the cameras are, from your Ring to your, walking to a Target or being on a vehicle these days. It's crazy.
Yeah. Investigators worked tirelessly to gather evidence to support their case, as I said, while they were, you know, I think trying to keep tabs on him. Surveillance footage from nearby homes and businesses offered crucial leads. A camera captured Victor's vehicle driving toward the location of the murder that night. In addition to the footage, forensic evidence also then began to surface. Daisy's body and the scene were carefully examined for any traces of DNA, and authorities soon matched a set of fingerprints. We've talked about this before, like how often are fingerprints the thing that gets you in 2025. But they matched his fingerprints to those found on Daisy's belongings. So you were asking, is this the right? I think they were
That's
pretty
wild.
sure this is
Yeah,
the
that's
right guy.
crazy.
What truly solidified the case against Victor, however, was the testimony of an acquaintance of his. This individual alleged that Victor had confessed to the crime, claiming that he had followed Daisy that evening in a fit of rage. The confession, paired with mounting forensic evidence, gave detectives the breakthrough that they had been seeking, and authorities issued an arrest warrant for Victor Sosa. After several weeks on the run, he was finally located and apprehended in Riverside and charged with first-degree murder, and the case against him is proceeding to trial.
Crazy.
Proceeded to trial, rather.
Yeah.
During the proceedings, prosecutors presented the evidence that painted a clear picture of premeditation and motive. Witness testimonies and forensic data left little room for doubt. Victor's defense team argued for mitigating circumstances, but the jury unconvinced. And I think you got to make your argument. You got to, as an attorney, that has to be such a hard thing as a defense attorney.
You can't just stand up and say nothing further, or the defense rests, and not at least try something, right?
Yeah. I mean, look at this face. He couldn't have done it. I mean, all this evidence against him. But it's your job. In 2022, Victor Sosa was convicted of Daisy's murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. It's one of this case, as others we've covered. I mean, it's just this reminder of like domestic violence, domestic disputes and things like that just, how do you say to someone, or how do you help someone who's in a situation? And did she ask for help? She obviously left this guy. It's sad to see these cases where you think, if somebody would have stepped in, and maybe there was nothing anyone could do.
Yeah.
It's sad to see that. Domestic violence is just it's a horrible thing. So often women get in these situations and they're so afraid, even though they know they need to leave and they want to leave, that they're just so afraid to do so because of things like this. And you hear so many stories like this, and they just get trapped in this fucking revolving door of abuse, and it's horrible.
Yep. And this is too late, but at least they did catch the guy, and he was convicted.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's that justice has at least been served in that respect, and there's some closure for her family. So that's Daisy DeLao, and that's all I got.
This is why you don't go second. It's because you always end on a depressing note. I'm kidding.
It's it is depressing. But it's depressing. But I'll say this though, at least again, the guy was caught, and caught quickly. So it's one of those where it's like the good guys won, and the good guys won fast this time. And it's just it's one of those things, like, this family will forever struggle with getting over the murder of their loved one, but they won't be wondering for the next 30 years what really happened, or going, I know that person did it. Why can't we convict him? Why is he living his life as if nothing happened? So in that respect, respectfully, I say it's a positive that this one ended on.
Yeah. Well, and I'm actually going to do an experiment after we wrap this episode. I'm actually going to search her name out and his name out and try to get the algorithm to give me all the content that you described from all the social media people that were out there talking about this, right? So if it was TikTok or Instagram, I want to see if actually it starts to present this stuff forward to me based on me going down this particular case's rabbit hole. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
That, or it'll just keep feeding you different things like this and true crime stuff. I mean, my Instagram feed at this point is like mountains and like hiking stuff and true crime cases. They've got me pegged. Also, I wanted to share something else. This is unrelated to this, but the Fox Hunter podcast, Jason, that we both worked on, there is If you haven't listened to that, please go check out Fox Hunter, the story about Rhonda Sue Coleman. This just happened. I made the announcement a little bit ago, actually, before we started recording this episode. But that case was a big proponent in getting the Coleman-Baker Act passed in the state of Georgia. It's the very first law of its kind in the history of the nation. You can read all about that online. In the Fox Hunter podcast, we have some DNA. I won't spoil it for you too much, but there's some DNA that we've been waiting on now for several years to be tested in this case. Very frustrating that it hasn't been. And the governor of Georgia just signed an amended budget for the cold case unit in Georgia here, adding $100,000 more for DNA testing for that cold case unit. So that's a pretty big, that was big news to me.
That's huge.
It's hopefully some of those funds are allotted to this, because I just feel like this is a case that will be solved. This DNA was taken from under Rhonda Coleman's fingernails.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think it will be solved. I mean, not to pin it on, all that hopefulness, but science don't lie.
Yeah. And this is kind of one of those, we have one shot, there's a trace amount, and we have to just do it right. And hopefully this is the changing factor in that. So I just wanted to share that with people.
It's great.
Whether it's included or not in there. That's all we got. This is How It All Went South. I'm Sean. That's Jason. We'll see you next time. Thanks for coming by.